Hello and welcome to the Student Undergraduate Research Experience. This session is about market research, and it's part of our Research Excellence and Innovation Entrepreneurship Series this summer of 2021. My name is Merle Massey. I'm the coordinator of undergraduate research. And with us today is Wayne Noble and Christine Peng, and they are from Research Excellence and Innovation. And I'm going to ask them, before they speak, to introduce themselves, and then away they go. So I believe, Wayne, you're talking first.
For sure. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Wainwright Noble. I am the Intellectual Property Specialist at Research Excellence and Innovation, previously known as Innovation Enterprise and previously known as the Innovation Industry Liaison Office. So we've changed names a bit, but our function remains the same. If we could go to the next slide, Christine. We just want to tell you a little bit quickly in terms of who we are.
Okay, just give me a
For
little
sure.
bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes the down arrow works.
Yeah, and then it just doesn't do anything today.
If you put your mouse towards the bottom left-hand side of your screen, do you get arrows? There you go.
Yes,
Right.
there you go.
There you go.
Okay. So we are in essence, we are the commercialization office for the university, the tech transfer and or commercialization office for the university. And to better explain it, we have a little picture that we want to show you here. So our job is to work with campus and to work with innovators and entrepreneurs to develop their innovation. From there, what we do is that we work with funders and industry to market that innovation to them. So we're basically we operate in the middle there, where we work with both faculty and researchers on campus. We also work with funders and maybe some companies outside of the university, and we try to make that sort of connection. Now, what we want to look at today is basically market research, but we want to show you that at the university, there's been lots of success in terms of startup or companies that were formed by faculty, in some cases, by postgrad students, so students and faculty. So you have Indigo, which is one of our high flyers with $650 million raised to date with a valuation of 3.5. You have Anandia Labs that was founded in 2014, or you have Exir, that was one that was featured on Dragon's Den. And all of these companies have a couple of things in common. And the thing that is in common for all of them is that they're successful, but they're successful because of the way they engaged the market. So the manner in which they commercialize the technology. So our job today, we want to talk a little bit about market research. And this is something that's critical at the early stage of commercialization, or even before you attempt to commercialize. You'd want to be able to understand what is market research, and you'd want to be able to conduct an effective and proper market research. Now, broadly speaking, and you'll find varying sort of definitions out there, a market research is essentially an attempt to collect, analyze, and interpret information. And the reason we do it is because it gives us insight into market viability. We want to know, is this product going to survive on the market? So let's work with, let's say maybe you're an entrepreneur and your product that you're selling is hand soap. Now, you need to be able to know that your product is going to be able to survive. So you need to be able to also review the market's level of demand and supply. In many cases, if the demand is high and the supply is low, that's your perfect entry point. If the supply is high and the demand is low, there are things that you can do. Maybe you create what is maybe a niche product. So for example, Rolls-Royce. Everyone's in the market for a vehicle, but not everyone can afford an expensive vehicle. So Rolls-Royce is an example of a company that has a product line out there where the supply is high So lots of supply and the demand is high. So they're like trying to fit their way in. You also want to do a market research because you want to be able to understand uh, who your consumers, but you also want to be able to understand who your competitors are. In our case, because we're talking market research in the context of university technology, competitors are also for us, also see competitors as potential companies that we can license a technology to. So it's not just that you'll be competing with them, because you're not going to be able to compete with a Samsung and an Apple. If you have, maybe let's say, for example, you have a new 3D antenna, or you have a 5G antenna, or you have something that's unique that they can utilize, it's easier for you to license your product to them. So one of the ways that you'll be able to understand what's going on out there, you need to know who your competitors are, because they're also persons that you can network with and maybe sell your product to, license your product to. You get an opportunity through a market research or assessment to understand what are the opportunities out there, what are the threats out there, and even what are some of the solutions to those threats. When we do a market research, next slide, we're looking for an industry outlook. We want to know what does the soap industry look like? What is its growth rate? Are people buying more soap, or are they buying less soap? We want to know market size. And when we talk about market size, we're talking global. Maybe we also want to know regional. So we want to know what's the global demand for soap, but also what's the regional demand for soap, North America. And then we can even go more granular and say, what's the Canadian demand for soap? We want to know segments, which is what I was just referring to there. But we also want to be able to target those segments, and a well-conducted market research can give us all of those pieces of information. We can also see market trends. We can see the leaders and the competition. We can get an idea of how we should price our product, or what are some of the adjacent markets. Now, you might be thinking, you know what, I have a really good soap and it's a hand soap, but through a market research, you may realize that if you take the hand soap and you're able to work it in such a way that you have liquid soap, maybe that's an adjacent market, and it would work better there. Or maybe it's better for, deployed in a shampoo. The last thing that we want to be able to talk about here, and there are different things that a market research can tell you. We just listed 10. There are about 20 different things that it can tell you. But one of the significant things that is able to show us is the market in terms of where the market is located. So we're talking about market location. Now, in terms of market location, this is critical for us. The majority of the technologies that flow through the university are technologies that we will protect using a patent. And if maybe you're struggling with some terminologies here, we have some past videos, one done by Dr. Chris Bowman, where he talks about intellectual property. I want to encourage you to go back and take a look at that. But when we look to patent or protect a piece of technology, we want to be able to know where should we protect that technology. So maybe we're not going to protect it in a region where there's not a lot of uptake for soap. Maybe they prefer another method in terms of washing dishes or washing hands. Maybe they have a different solution. But let's say China is big on stuff like that, and we're going to protect it in China. And let's say Europe, that's a big market segment. But if it's not a big segment in North America, we're going to look at that patent and go, yeah, we're not going to file a patent application in North America because it doesn't make sense. The market is just not strong enough. We want to remind you here, because I know you're all academics, but sometimes you have to be able to take off that academic cap when you're thinking about market research. But some of the things will remain constant. You will understand that there's primary and secondary information. The first thing that you'll want to be able to do is take a look at secondary sources. So you're looking at websites, you're looking at newspaper articles, you want to know what's published, what's out there. But when you're finished with your secondary sources, you're going to be able to have a better feel of where you need to deploy a primary market research. So you're going to need to be able to call some people and get their advice and say, hey, what do you use for soap? Do you like liquid soap or do you like hard pressed soap? Do you like, like what type of soap do you prefer? You're going to be able to narrow down what your value proposition for your technology, for your product line by doing primary research. But the first thing that you'd want to be able to do is secondary research. And Christine will come back later on and she'll give you like an excellent example in terms of using secondary research to do market research. Now, let's take a look at some of the constant mistakes that we make. A lot of people rely on free data from the internet, but a lot of that stuff is outdated and oftentimes it's not specific to your product line or your business decision. And sometimes an error that we can make is survey our own network. Now, I've had friends who say things like, hey, I have a product, I want to be able to sell it. And I say, who did you talk to? And they said, I spoke to my family. Well, your family is your family. They're not going to give you the hard news to say, or the bad news and saying, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. The third thing, next slide, please, Christine, is you rely on anecdotal feedback, right? So you're relying on information from customers or stakeholders. And those are good, but it's not the best way for you to be able to conduct research. And oftentimes it gives you skewed bits and pieces of information. So I want to show you something here. One of the things with market research is that market research can be superbly expensive. So for example, Fortune Business Insights, if you did market research and you looked for, let's say, a market forecast from Fortune Business Insights on hand soap, you will need to pay for the license about $4,000. And it can range between $4,000 to $8,000 just for that report. And oftentimes that report will not give you what you're looking for because it's not customized oftentimes to your unique product. Because you have a unique product, but you're looking so wide to find information. But sometimes that report will give you some useful pieces of information. Take, for example, marketresearch.com. They have a report out there, and the cost for a single user license is $20,000. So if you were to get this particular report, this market report, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to do market research, I'm just going to buy this report, it will cost you $20,000. But oftentimes it will not be specific to your product line. But within that report, you'll find useful pieces of information that you can extract, and then you can go back and validate those pieces of information. So for example, the report will always have a table of content and an abstract, and within the table of content and within the abstract, you will find useful bits and pieces of information that you could then take and use it in your market research. Now, there are a couple of tools out there and they're free. So you can Google, you can use social media, Instagram, Twitter, and say, hey, what's out there for hand soap? Let me see what people are selling. Let me see what, are they perfumed soaps? Are they non-perfumed soaps? What are they selling it at? But you're also going to be cognizant that you can also mine some internal sources as a university student or faculty. So I want to show you a couple of things that's available for free. So for one, you can go to Industry Canada's website, and believe it or not, you can pull up a company profile. Let's say you found a company and the company is X and they sell the most hand soap in Canada. You can take a look at their company profile. You can see how much money they're actually earning. Or you can even pull a credit report. A lot of people don't know this. The same way you pull a credit report for an individual can pull a credit report for a business, and you can get an idea, is that business profitable or not? And that's super important, because if the main actors, if your main competitors or your potential competitors are struggling and they have established supply lines, they've already sunk their teeth into the market, they have big chunks of the market. If they're struggling, It means that you will need to be creative enough to avoid the mistakes that they are making, but you need to be able to understand whether they are successful or not. Now, there are lots of useful pieces of information on our USask website. If you go to the library, and or even if you just bring up usask.ca and you type market research, it'll show you some resources that you can access. So there's IBIS World, there's Passport. If you could go to the second one for me, Christine. There's also Statistics Canada, so Stats Canada. You can get reports from Bank of Canada. I've always found the Conference Board of Canada's reports to actually be useful. So there are lots of secondary sources out there that you can capture that will help you to make an informed decision when it comes to market research. So again, just to remind you quickly, you need to be able to do a market research because you want to be able to validate your technology. You need to know whether or not your technology will survive in the market. And there are some key areas that you want to be able to identify. There's some key questions you want to ask because you need those answers to determine your value proposition for your business. Christine.
Thanks, Wayne. Great presentation. And then, so my name is Christine, and I'm the Tech Transfer Officer from REI. And for Wayne's discussion, I'm going to talk about how we actually do our market assessment. So similar to any other projects you're working on, we always start from a framework. That is a logical or you see a systematic system that would guide you step by step to reach your final goal. So there are a lot of different methods to do a market assessment, but the most commonly used, and also our office is currently using it, is called the NABC approach. So the NABC approach consists of, first, you need to know your customer needs. And then you need to think about your unique solution that you want to use to bring the product or whatever you invented to the market. You also need to quantitate your benefits and then recognize any existing competition that are already in the market. So if you finish these 4 steps, you would be sitting with a relatively good value proposition that would help bring your business plan to a success. So if we go into each stage detailedly, we want to know what our consumers want so we can offer something that can fill the significant gap in the market for them. Questions we can ask in this stage could include, what do our customers do at that location? Where does it come from? And then what is in high demand in that location? Even what kind of shopping styles these people have. So for example, Siri, before Steve Jobs took over the Apple company, Siri became a general purpose servant, but Siri was originally intended for busy travelers. So those business professionals find it really difficult and time consuming to go through 1,000 web pages, try to look for the information they want, because they need to constantly book flights and then manage online transactions. So they need something that is really convenient and then can provide instant and accurate results. So Siri saw this gap that is needed in this market, and then filling this ended up opening a multi-billion market for them. So a lot of market assessments failed because it failed in the first stage, is didn't recognize the market need. And the reasons are simple. People love their own ideas. And just don't get me wrong, it is good to be passionate about your own idea, own product or inventions, but being blind of the market need can end up causing you too much money and energy to start with. And after we figure out that there's a market need for the product, another factor we want to know is whether we have some customers that would be interested in. We want to know whether we have some potential customers we can reach to. So that is called our market share within target market. So we often see here there's a big total market available. A lot of people globally are interested in this product, but that doesn't mean they will be interested in your product, and then that doesn't mean they would be available for you to reach. So if we want to explain this idea better, we divided this market into different layers. And for example, if you have a company that is doing services or doing tasks for busy people, And then you read from the newspaper that 30% of the population in your city are busy because they're super rich. So you kind of have a number, let's say 50,000 in your mind. And but that's not the number for your market, because you go back to your service company and you realize your service is only available for people who are within 25 to 55 years old. So your market dramatically dropped from a 50,000 number to a 20,000 number. And then you realize that you only have 3 employees at the moment, you, your partner, and maybe your dog. So 3 of you can only work in a small area, and let's see, just 2 miles within downtown. And then for the whole year, you can only reach maximum 1,200 people. So that's even a smaller number compared with your previous market. And guess what makes things worse is that you ended up doing some just free chatting with your neighbors, and then you realize that there were some competitions there. So other companies are offering cuter delivering dogs than yours. So you ended up having a high rejection rate. So for that 1,200 people, maybe only 400, let's say a safe number, will finally accept and willingly to deal with you. So out of that 50,000, you ended up with 400. That's a relatively safer and more realistic number you want to start working with, because your expenses and future profits will be based on that 400, not out of the 50,000. So the next question is, how do we actually get that 400 number from this market? So we need to do some homework, and that's called market research. As Wayne mentioned before, that we can get information from either the primary research or the secondary research. And of course, you always start from secondary research. You can do searching the public sources that are available. You can just Google search any online journals, published papers you can read through. Or you can find some commercial available sources. There are some research companies, for example, Global Data, Frost & Sullivan, that you can find market data you want, or you can just get some sources internally from where you work at. Well, now I want to talk about this disadvantages and advantages of using both Google and the research company's service. Sometimes if you just want to go, if you want to know just a bigger trend of the market, let's see, you want to know, is it increasing or is it decreasing, and how many people globally are interested in it, then one Google hit might do the job. But a lot of times you want to know more detailed information. You want to see what the customer's preference based on each country, where does the segmentation looks like. And you find that it is very hard to organize the pieces of information you find here and there from a Google search, because you ended up using a whole week trying to make sense out of what you found through the 100 web pages you opened. So in that way, the research company did a better job in organizing and summarizing some of the research data for you. So they already do this, they already organized all the data information into this 10 to 12 pages readable and presentable report for you. So it's easy for you to pick and copy the information out of the report. But yes, there's a fee associated with using this kind of research company. But it is really a great service. So sometimes if you really want to know detailed information, it is a suggested way. And of course, go back to primary resources. It is a primary research, sorry. It is never a good answer to see that whether primary research is better than the secondary research. The suggestion here is to not overly rely on one type of research, so you ended up getting biased information. So up to now, I want to talk about the rest of the NABC. So that's approach, benefits, and competitions still stick on our same, the Siri example. So when we figure out that we have a need for the customers, and we also have a significant number of people who are interested in our product, we want to figure out how we're going to design this product so we can bring this product to the market finally. When we want to make a solution to design our product, we want to always go back to our goal. So that is our need. So we want to define our need so we can refine our solution within that scope so we don't go everywhere. For example, Siri. The goal for the Siri is simple. I want to help people save time and then make searching convenient for everybody. So what it does is it's incorporated this responding to spoken English language. So you can literally ask a question and then Siri will take over doing the task from that moment. And also it has this built-in artificial intelligence tool. So for example, if you always want to fly within this airline and then you constantly search this, sort of the AI intelligence tool will remember your frequency of the searches, and in future will always recommend to you that the low prices or the discounts are available within this airline. So because of Siri's unique approach, it brings up a massive benefits because no tool at that time can literally do what Siri does. You can ask a question at any time while you're walking or you're eating in a restaurant, so that saves a heck load of time for you. And plus, who doesn't like a free app? So what we learned from the Siri success is that if you want to offer something with benefits, you cannot just bring something that is different than other products. Your benefits has to be quantitative and memorable, so standing out that customers can recognize it instantly. So that means some benefits from your product has to be substantially better than anything else exists in the market. And of course, we often do research for our competitors. We often want to know what make our products better than theirs. Siri did this same homework. So Siri wants to compare itself with the simple Google search. And then what the best value Siri offers is the searching speed. It can do twice faster job compared with a Bing or a single Google search. And it also pronounces out and then reads you in the voice you like. So with all these good value propositions in hand, it is anticipated that Siri will be a success when it hits the market. So in the summary of this whole NABC model, what I want to see is never lose your focus. We know that when you want to build something up, when you find an approach to invent something, you often get colorful and beautiful ideas from everybody around you. So what you ended up doing is you go off track. You want to make this product fancy and you want to include all the ideas, but that's not your goal. You're off track from your need. You did not need to do those things. So end this conversation. I just found this picture on the website. Follow one course until successful. I think it's a little bit exaggerated, but I think follow the main path until successful is the right one. And I will hand it back to Wayne to see if he has something to add before the questions. Thanks.
Wayne, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh no, it's my kids in the background. Sorry about that. No, I was just waiting to see if anyone had any questions or anything. We're just going to hold a little bit for that.
Absolutely. Let's call for questions right now. And I'm going to stop the recording because then sometimes that opens up the way for lots and lots of questions. But thank you both for that. That was a really, really fast but informative run through what it looks like to do market research, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.